Kani kadai ka Batisi TV. Bat pidang pet ya ka khubor baman kasngi belawan ra shepi da ka rupa. Bapentingan bat penbha.
Henen kasngi ka arpnyo terek mentau nai weng arajar katpra. Kajalla kala pelong ya ka dorbar ke bakarpang. Banyatai halor ki babon tli kiman ki balawan ra na kaliang sensar kumjo na kaliang persya. Kawai na kiman bakham kongsan balawan ra hakani ka dorbar kadai halor ka jingdawa na ka sorkar pedeng. Pan perung no ya ka ketien kasi bat garo haka kernet ke bapra jong ka riti sensar jong kari. Hakani ka dorbar lawan ra ya ka jingpen kre ya kani ka jingdawa ka baladan ru ka jingpen kala na ka bamuncua. Kabelawar ra haka dorbar kabelalong haunai luar mentau senam arja katpra.
Mr. Speaker, sir, at the very outset, I am grateful for this opportunity to once again raise this important matter regarding the resolution to urge upon the Government of India to take necessary measures to include the Khasi and Garo languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India. Sir, it may be recalled that a resolution in this regard has been duly considered and passed by this august House on the 27th of September 2018 during its autumn session. That, sir, this august House has on the above date taken a historic step by coming together and unanimously passed the said resolution in view of the urgent nature of the matter, as the Khasi and Garo communities have been struggling over the years through constitutional means to achieve for their respective languages an honorable space within the Indian constitutional framework. This long pending demand for inclusion of the said two languages in the 8th schedule keeps on increasing from various quarters because of the advantages the language gets once it is included in the 8th schedule, such as getting the annual Sahitya Academy Awards, getting funds for the implementation of the language, job opportunities for the speaker of the language once it is included. The language becomes a subject in the Union Public Service Commission examination, and many other unaccountable advantages, and also will ensure that both the languages are preserved and promoted in all respects. Sir, I would also like to mention that none of the languages from the state of Meghalaya have been considered for inclusion in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India. Further, it may also be informed that the Khasi and Garo languages have fulfilled the requisite criteria for inclusion in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India. However, sir, before sending the said resolution dated 27th September 2018 to the Government of India for its consideration, the same has been revisited by the state government, and after careful examination it has been found that we could improve the content of the resolution and make it stronger so that Khasi and Garo language can be included in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. That, sir, the matter has also been deliberated and discussed with the representatives from the Khasi Authors Society and the Archik Literature Society, who are the two prominent organizations who have been working for the promotion of their respective languages. Hence, sir, after considering the views and suggestions of different stakeholders, and after having done a maximum exercise on the matter, a fresh resolution which is more comprehensive has been prepared and finalized to replace the earlier resolution dated 20th September 2018. Hence, sir, I would like to propose before this august House to replace the resolution dated 27th September 2018 by a fresh one. This may be kindly considered and adopted by this august House in this session. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to once again request this august House to once again come together and unanimously resolve to urge upon the Government of India to initiate necessary measures as early as possible to bring forward an official bill to amend the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution to include the Khasi and Garo languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India through this fresh resolution. So to add to this, I would also like to say that though the resolution was passed on the 27th, after the resolution was studied by different organizations like the Khasi Literature Society, Khasi Author Society and the Archik Literature Society, they felt that there could be many more things that could be added and a lot of things that could make the resolution much stronger. Therefore, in the interest of ensuring that this resolution includes all aspects that will ensure that our two languages are included, we decided that let us take the amendment, make the changes and make the resolution stronger, and that is why we are here today, sir. Number two, sir, there was also a suggestion that was made by some quarters that maybe we can have two resolutions, one for Garo and one for Khasi. Sir, I would like to state that the reason why we thought that both Garo and Khasi language should be together is because we should send a message of unity, we should send a message of equalness and a firm message to Government of India that we want both these aspects and both these languages to be included. Sir, it is not necessary that Government of India will look at this resolution and say, we reject one or and because one is rejected, therefore both are rejected. That will never happen. Government of India has a list of 42 languages which are being considered under the 8th schedule. This resolution is simply showing the voice of our members and our state and our people that we would want Khasi and Garo language to be included in the 8th schedule. Hence, sir, we decided that we will put this together. In no way will this resolution affect one language or the other language. The Government of India will do its exercise to decide which particular language qualifies and does not qualify. That exercise is a very tedious exercise. So therefore, sir, this resolution is simply meant to send one voice and a voice of unity and showing that Garo, Khasi language both are equally important to our state, sir. So therefore, all these deliberations were made, and I'm very happy, sir, that we had very good inputs from the Khasi Author Society and the Archik Literature Society, and I'm very happy that this resolution has come out much, much stronger than it was earlier through the inputs that we received from these different organizations. So therefore, sir, to conclude, sir, I would also assure this August House that the matter would be followed up with the Government of India to ensure that the aspirations of our people is fulfilled. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief Minister. Any member who would like to say anything on this?
Honorable Speaker, sir,
But be short, please.
I rise to also support the resolution, sir. Language is the strength of any community. It is the identity on which we exist and we are identified as a particular tribe or a particular community. I believe that when it comes to language, this House stands unanimous. We have tried our best in the past years to consolidate on ensuring that our proposal for the inclusion of Khasi language particularly gets heard and the attention is recognized by the Government of India. And I am happy that this government has thought it necessary that Garo language should also be given the same status. I applaud this effort, and I therefore request the government of the day to remember that when it comes to language, we are one and on the same page. No one political party can take any single credit for that, because we are one on the same, we speak the same voice, and we shall fight on the same plane. I believe, sir, that a resolution is not the end of our proposal, and that a resolution alone will not culminate in the inclusion of both our important dialects and languages in the 8th schedule. It is becoming, therefore, at this point of time, that the government of the day should include all of us political parties. Whenever there is a need that demands a common voice, a common approach, and a common platform. Therefore, sir, as I resume my seat, I believe that this resolution will be the new face of modern Meghalaya. This resolution will amount to a big celebration amongst the people of Khasi and Jaintia Hills and Garo Hills. And I look forward that a resolution will see the light of day and that we will be able to have an ideal result where the language actually gets included into the 8th schedule. With these few words, I resume my seat, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I also rise to support the resolution moved by the Honorable Chief Minister. And I recall that on the 27th of September, during the last autumn session, where we have discussed this resolution, I have requested the government of the day to take on board the Khasi Author Society and the Achik Literature Society into confidence so that any doubts or any hurdles may be removed. And I'm glad that the government of the day has taken both society into confidence, and in the process, many possible hurdles have been removed. But one last hurdles that remain is that these two societies would like to pursue the matter and see that this proposal comes to a logical end. And that their request to consider, for the government to consider to officially recognize these two autonomous organizations as officially recognized by the government as Sahitya Academy, in the line of Sahitya Academy, like Konkani and Kannada Academy. It will be helpful for these two organizations to pursue the matter. So I request the government of the day to officially recognize these two organizations as the organization, autonomous organization, recognized and funded by the government in the line of Sahitya Academy of Konkani and Kannada, so that they can pursue the matter to a logical end. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise to support the resolution moved by the government and would like to submit before this August House that this House has demonstrated unanimity while this important issue was taken up. It is a culmination of the desire of the people. I must also take this privilege to remind this August House that when a resolution to move and prevail upon Government of India for inclusion of Khasi and Garo languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution was tabled by the opposition there, the House stood united, and we remember the culmination of the deliberations and discussions in this August House, which resulted into an assurance by the government that yes, we stand united and government must take all the measures necessary to achieve this objective in sync with the aspirations and expectations of our people. The government must take further measures, as we are all aware that all those languages which have been included under the 8th schedule of the Constitution, even after measures have been taken by the state government and the respective literature societies, there have been long struggle which were put collectively by all concerned that their respective languages find included in the 8th schedule of the Constitution. Therefore, all the necessary support will have to be provided to both the literature societies and all other associated bodies whose support we'll be requiring to ensure that our objective fructifies. Therefore, government must have a dedicated officer, a team of dedicated officers. I was going through why we had to come back with this revised resolution. It was because the government did not have a dedicated team of officers to work on this. There are officers who have worked on this for a long time, who are aware of everything. And therefore, there wouldn't have been that flip-flop in the first instance. Therefore, please have a dedicated team of officers and ensure that there's a appropriate collective endeavor to pursue the matter beyond these points. So with these few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to once again submit before this August House that we stand united in our collective endeavor to move the government of India to respond to these aspirations and expectations of our people. I also would like to place on record our sincere thanks to many of the leaders who were assigned with the job, because we constituted the committees. Committee headed by the then Deputy Chief Minister, Professor R.C. Lalu, and also another committee, subcommittee headed by Dr. D. Delappa, and a number of other members who worked overtime to ensure that we achieved thus far. So with these few words, Mr. Speaker, sir, we express our confidence that we will all move collectively and ensure that we achieve this objective. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mahbub. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I also rise to support this very vital issue facing by the present situation. As we all know, the fact that the issue of responsibility is crucial. I like to remind myself and all of us present in this August House that this is not the one, but this is the need of the hour. I appreciate the effort taken by the government, as we all know the fact that the very first language of a very small child is a language express. And I also like to remind that dialect is a crucial weapon for any human race, as this has been enshrined in the Article 29.1. Further, dialect is a very powerful weapon to preserve the language as conferred in the Article 29.1 of the Constitution of India, which reads, "Any section of the citizen residing in the territory of India or any part thereof having a distinct language, script or culture of its own shall have the right to conserve the same." As in 2005, the Meghalaya Language Act has recognized Khasi language and also Garo language as an official language of the state, and also spoken by late Reverend Hopewell Ellis, Kaktian Katei Yakachai Punrio. Language construct the race or the community. As we also accept the fact that by getting included in the 8th schedule, it may draw a line to many advantages to open the opportunity for job, especially for our beloved youth, educated youth of today. So I won't take much time. Just to remind, the Khasi language belonged to the Austro-Asiatic family under the Monk-Khmer group and was put into writing in the Roman script by Thomas Jones, a missionary of the Welsh Calvinistic Methodist mission around 1841-42. Today it is being studied as a subject from pre-primary up to PhD. The Garo language belonged to the Tibeto-Burman group and was put into writing around the late 19th century by the American Baptist missionaries. Today it being studied from pre-primary to PhD. I fully support to adopt 2 separate resolutions to be sent to the government of India. As a representative of the people, we have to listen to the voice of the people, and these resolutions will be to fulfill a long demand that has been debated since 1972 when our beloved state came into existence. I therefore wish to state that it is a right to be included in the 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, and it should not come as an election promise. It is a dream to be fulfilled, and we cannot delay further. As there is a say, delaying is the deadliest form of denial. With these few words, I resume my seat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I think we can go to the next item now.
Yes, sir.
Or you want to respond to some points?
No, sir, so yes, sir. Just that all the points that have been mentioned by the members, we have taken note of all those points. Yes, sir.
So we go to next item then. So item number 11. Shri Conrad K. Sama Shipna and Church, political, to beg leave to move the proposal to replace the government resolution approved by the Meghalaya Legislative Assembly during the autumn session on the 27th September 2018, urging the government of India to include the Khasi and Garo language in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India be approved. Shipin sir, please.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move that the proposal to replace the government resolution approved by the Meghalaya Legislative Assembly during the autumn session on 27th of September 2018, urging the government of India to include Khasi and Garo languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India be approved.
Motion moved. I will now put the question to the board of the House. The question is that the government resolution be approved. Those who are for the government resolution say aye.
Aye.
Those who are against say no. The ayes have it. Ayes have it. The government resolution is carried, and this House adopts and approves the proposal to replace the government resolution approved by the Meghalaya Legislative Assembly during the autumn session on 27 September 2018, urging the government of India to include the Khasi and Garo languages in the 8th schedule of the Constitution of India.
Hakani ke darbar ke Bakarpang ke Basisngi, nakalyang persya, balai lam da keseng kongres, UMLA jong ke Maulai Constituency, ubak piti saukme, ulabo jingkeli ke sorkar, halor ke khobor ke balami, ke kot khobor, The Shillong Times, ke ba ke heading ke ong, Weak Health Sector Worries CM. Ne ke bamon, khuslai Menteri Rangba, batlot hakaban kentil ya ke kot ke khia. Nakaliang UMLA ke Mawson Ram Constituency, uba HM Siangpliang, ulabo jingkeli ke sorkar, lengba Menteri Rangba ke Jela, uba kami ru ya katnat ke Platingka, ukon rat ke Sangma, halor ke khobor ke balami, haka kot khobor, The Shillong Times hi, haka arpenru terik mataw nai weng arja kapra, haka ba kaladan ke jingtho, ke baong, despite financial crunch, no steps to curtail spending. Ne ke baong wat hapadeng ke jing sistem pisa, ke sorkar kam syam nasyam ya kisenjam ban penduna ya ke jing pulot pensam.
Honorable Speaker, sir, the state is reeling under a severe financial crisis. We are all aware that the state government is facing a very serious financial crunch, but we do not see any visible steps taken by the government to curtail expenditures. The state is already facing a burden of the recommendation of the 5th Pay Commission and the loss due to the NGT ban on coal mining. And yet, sir, we see that the state government is not paying heed to the losses that it is creating and causing to the state exchequer. Although the finance department has issued instructions to follow austerity measures, including purchase of vehicles, furnishing of buildings, hosting official dinners, creation of posts, all these remain only in the files. The ministers are furnishing their buildings, furnishing their official quarters, purchasing vehicles. Departments are purchasing new vehicles, completely defying the instructions of the finance department. I do not know whether the chief minister is aware. He is in charge of finance and everything is being done under his nose. Nobody is complying to these instructions. The impact of the 5th Pay Commission recommendation on the government will be to the tune of 1,000 crores rupees. 1,000 crores per year by way of salary and pensions. Now, does the government have that much money? Is the government aware that it has to cough up more than 1,000 crores of rupees for salaries and pensions of all the employees in the state? The government has already incurred a loss of about 700 crores annually due to the coal mining ban since April 2014. What are the source of revenue for us? We are all aware that the major contribution to the resources of the state was the coal mining. But since 2014, we are still grappling, struggling to find out the source of revenue for the state. Now the government of the day is spending several crores of rupees in terms of perks and other allowances to more than, as on date, 65 political appointees so far. That was as per the list that was furnished in the previous session that we got, sir. I could see from the list that I have with me, there are more than 65 already. Chairman, co-chairman, vice chairman, and the list just goes on every day, sir. The latest was yesterday again. One more co-chairman of an ex-MLA from Umroi added to the list. How long is your list, my dear Chief Minister? Every day you're accommodating, the government is accommodating people. Sir, by my calculation, each chairman is being spent about 16 to 18 lakhs annually, sir. Now 16 to 18 lakhs for all the perks, honorarium, facilities, petrol, including vehicle. If each chairman has to be given 16 to 18 lakhs a year, kindly multiply it by 65, sir. As on date 65, I do not know how far the list will go. Now we have advisors, 5 to 6 advisors. I do not know why the government needs so many advisors. We have chief advisors also on top of the advisors now. So this is unnecessary spending at the cost of the state, sir. Unnecessary. Sir, So I consider all these as wastage of public money, and I feel that the Chief Minister should review his pocket, should look into the exchequer of the state as to how much money do they have. So I still remember the Chief Minister assuring that the government would streamline holding of festivals. But it seems the Honorable Chief Minister has forgotten his own words. Festivals after festivals are being organized, sir. The just concluded Cherry Blossom Festival was sanctioned beyond ₹1 crore. Sir, in the name of a flower, the state has indulged itself in wasting public money. More than ₹1 crore for an extravaganza comprising of music, glamour, fashion shows. Is this what we want to project to the world in the name of a flower? We understand that yes, we need to showcase the state to attract tourists by holding these festivals. May I know from the government, how many footfalls of foreign tourists have we been able to draw the attention towards this cherry blossom, except for few friends from Japan and the embassy of Japan? Sir, it's sad to note that during this cherry blossom festival, liquor was available in every stall. Sir, it is so surprising that people went to enjoy, I agree. But the government should have also checked how to collect some kind of revenue out of these festivals. So what had happened was, every stall was selling liquor and without a license. Without a license. Now you can imagine, sir, how much money we have lost. People just went and opened up a shop and they started selling liquor. It would have been a good source of revenue for us, sir. Whole festivals, no problem. But try to see how we benefit, how the state also benefit. Can the Honorable Chief Minister give me the statistics as to how much the government has lost by virtue of not giving these temporary bar licenses to all the shops, the stalls, food stalls that were open in the Cherry Blossom Festival? More than 100 stalls. Almost everybody was selling liquor. So the autumn festival. So we had an autumn festival after quite many years. Now, my question is, it's all right by holding the autumn festival, but can the government kindly give me the number of foreign tourists, or them, for that matter, Indian tourists, who have come and benefited out of this autumn festival? Even here, food stalls were selling liquor and wine, and there also we lost a good amount of revenue. There was music, there was glamour, there was fashion, there was everything. I think the Honorable Chief Minister himself had also gone to this festival. How much did we earn? What benefit did we get? Sir, the NH7, the music extravaganza that was held every year in Klitirchi near Jowai, It is good, sir, we should encourage. I personally feel yes. Meghalaya is a rock state or a rock capital, Shillong being a rock capital of the whole country. We need to encourage this kind of extravaganza. But we should also look in the interests of the state. Sir, for your kind information, the whole NH7 would have gone without a penny for the state. Would have gone without a penny for the state. I must appreciate certain bureaucrats who have stood up in the cabinet to tell the chief minister that we need to impose some tax on the liquor that's going to be sold during the NH7. Otherwise, sir, the cabinet was about to clear all free. Imagine, sir, this is the state of affairs of the government. I must appreciate whichever bureaucrat has stood up to the government to say, yes, we need to impose temporary bar license, and that is only when the chief minister and the cabinet agreed to impose the bar license so that the government could get some revenue, sir. So this is the way, if the government thinks to collect revenue for the state, then it is very, very pathetic, sir.
Sir, having said that, I was listening to the different points that were brought out by the honorable member, sir. And I must say that he has tried to do his homework, but sadly not succeeded. So there are many points that he had mentioned. Maybe I'll go through it one by one. But sir, I know the rules say short discussion. But sir, he didn't make it short, so it's difficult for me to make it short.
It's a special session.
It's a special session, sir, so I have to take it in a special way also. So the honorable member mentioned about different expenditures that the government has to incur. He talked about the cars being bought, the chairmans being appointed, different travels being made. Sir, I think the member understands this is a government of Meghalaya. Do you expect our officials and our people to work without vehicles? Do you expect our officials to sit in Shillong and expect that government of India will simply release the funds to us? So the engine has to move. And I think maybe the honorable member does not realize it. The engine must move. So there are mining officers, there are doctors, there are DHMOs who don't have cars till now. And we talk about health services being given to the people. When a DHMO doesn't have a car, and does the honorable member think, and is he trying to imply that we will not buy a car for the doctors? We must realize we are here to give service to the people, and service requires certain level of infrastructure. We are buying vehicles as per need. Wherever there is a necessity to buy vehicles, we buy it. Because we cannot expect the particular officer to drive his own vehicle. That is embarrassing for the government, plus it is not fair. The honorable member says that we are appointing chairman after chairman. Sir, please look back. I can assure you, sir, that the number of chairmen appointed in the past was much higher than what it is today. Much higher, sir. Please look back and do your homework before you say it. We realize that we have to cut expenditure. But at the same time, sir, what is the purpose of involving parties in the growth? What is the purpose of involving individuals to be part of the government? Is to have participatory governance. All the people in the political parties are people who are in touch with the public, sir. We don't do it just because we want to satisfy people. There is a purpose behind it. And it is not something that we started it. It's been going on for many years. But we ensured that we controlled it, sir. So honorable members should look back and then mention about all these things. So the autumn festival was mentioned. So let me inform the honorable member who is misinformed. The government has not even spent a single rupee on the autumn festival till now. This initiative was taken by the organizers themselves. They approached us. We told them it is tough, it is difficult. Let me examine the matter. They went ahead and organized the program without government help at that point in time. And so these are initiatives, who are these people who are organizing, sir? These are our local entrepreneurs, our youth who are doing this. Government should be encouraging. And sir, I went there because that day, certain ministers, officials, big, footballers, we are having a program called YLC. So I thought that maybe I'll take them there to experience this festival. And I did feel embarrassed for a moment when I saw how well it was done. The honorable member needs to do his homework in a better way, sir. It's no use just bringing out nice big statements and classy statements, and trying to misinform the house. Let's go into facts. But yes, sir, after seeing that the autumn festival was good, it went well, I felt the necessity that we must support these kind of youngsters. We must support them. We are not against or for festivals. It's not about being in favor of festivals or against festivals. But I think, sir, it's about really supporting the youth and the entrepreneurs and the people who take such initiative. I think a small pat on their back gives them a lot more confidence to move forward. And I think our government is definitely something that we want to work in that line, sir. So the honorable member very conveniently mentioned that during the NH7, it was a particular official who brought out this issue. It was almost as if he was sitting in the meeting himself, sir, I don't know. But let me inform him and the whole house, sir, that the temporary bar license fees has already been there for a long time. It was at a level of about, I don't have the exact numbers, sir, but I can give you approximate, about 10,000 rupees per day for a crowd of less than 2,000, about 15,000 rupees for a crowd less than 5,000, and for a crowd above 5,000, about 25,000. So that was roughly the amount. I stand corrected on that number. But it's roughly in that amount, sir. It was only during our time and the initiative that we took. After several meetings having with Excise Department, I gave instructions to every revenue generating department that whenever you're given a target, I'm very happy to see that you achieve the target. I told the departments, whether it's taxation, whether it's excise, if you tell them the target is 30 crores, so they will get 31 crores that year. If you give them a target of 40 crores, they will get 41 crores. They never miss the target. So I told all the departments, let us give you a 30% target. I don't want 10% increase, I want 30% increase. I told the excise department, revenue department, taxation department, you find the way forward on how we can increase our taxes this year by 30%. It is only after that instruction was given, did the excise department conduct an exercise and find out ways and measures of increasing the revenue of the excise department by 30% this year. And one of the measures happened to be this particular measure. So the temporary license, after great pressure from the cabinet, we decided that we will increase the amount from 25,000 for a crowd of 5,000 and above, from 25,000 all the way to 1 lakh, which is an average in the entire country, sir. And we took the country average so that our people are also not affected, the entrepreneurs are not affected, but the state revenue also is not lost. So we averaged the entire amount in this country and we came out with a figure of 1 lakh. So I don't know where the honorable member has got all these informations, sadly, which is mostly wrong, sir. So the honorable member mentioned about the autumn festival, sir. So the little flower that he's talking about was very beautiful to him 2 years, 3 years back maybe, sir. But suddenly today he's sitting on the other side and he doesn't find it beautiful anymore, which is fine with me. But sir, we as a government, we don't see things negatively. Sir, I have always been very clear in my thoughts and in the policy that we create. If somebody has done something good, let us continue it and make it better. We don't criticize. We don't criticize, sir. So therefore, Cherry Blossom is something which the Institute of Biodiversity, along with Meghalaya government and the then Chief Minister, thought it was a great idea. Let's take it forward. So we looked at it, we studied. We talked to the Embassy of Japan. We asked them, is there a way we could collaborate? Can we take it to a new level? Can we have more international participants? Japan has been having this Cherry Blossom Festival for more than 1300 years. It started in 700 AD, sir. So you can imagine the kind of experience they have. We thought that let us link up with Japan. And so linking up with Japan is not a simple thing. So we linked up with Japan because Japan is not only about cherry blossom, sir. It is about the infrastructure investment that Japan makes in Meghalaya today. The JICA projects that are going on. It is about the relationship we build with Japan, about the human capital that we are sending to Japan, about the investments that we will make in the future or they will make in the future in Meghalaya. So it all is linked up. And as I said, sadly the member is not seeing the bigger picture of these efforts to try and link up with Japan. Japan is not just about cherry blossom. Cherry blossom was just the face of the whole thing, sir. But there is a lot more going behind the scene. Today, JICA's investing more than 5,000-6,000 crores in Meghalaya just for the bridges and the roads. And all this will be done with the knowledge and the support of the Embassy of Japan. So I think this is something that all members should realize and understand. He mentioned about the fees that have been collected, or not collected, I should say. So the application has to come. We cannot simply tell some shopkeeper and say, here, take an application for a bar license. It doesn't happen like that. They have to apply to us. They have to apply to us and then we will give the necessary license. If that was the case that day, I would be happy to look into it and let the honorable member give me proof that this kind of things happened. But sir, just coming on the floor of the house and saying it was available in every stall, I don't think it's a responsible way of handling things, sir. Let us not create a negative environment in our place. I understand there are issues, sir. I'm not at all close to listening to the issues and changing them. I have, in fact, made a lot of points. And I will take the positive points that he had mentioned in his speech and remove the negative ones, and try to work on them in a good manner, you see. But I think the honorable member and all the members here can think the same way. My suggestion and my request to everybody, sir, is let us work positively. There is no use trying to say that you did this and I did this and your time, this was more or less time, sir. I can come out with the entire details if they want, sir. But that is not the way I work. I am a very positive person and I would like to say the positive things and I would urge all the members to think positively. Sir, another last point before I resume my seat. There are many other points he mentioned, sir, but I would not cover it because of the paucity of time. But sir, one issue which I feel is very important is that it's not just about cutting the small expenditures. It is important. I'm not saying, sir, every penny saved is earned. So I am very much for saving even a single rupee and paisa. But we have certain certain expenditures that are required to simply move the engine and move the system. Those cannot be compromised. So that's number one. Number two, sir, we should understand that it is not only about cutting expenditure, it is about increasing revenue. So we are on the job, and as I said, I have asked every revenue earning department to ensure that the best technology be used, ensure that the right policies are put in place so that our revenues will jump by 30%, not just 10%, sir, 30%. And I'm happy to inform you, Transport Department has done that. So the Transport Department, in about 2 to 3 sessions, cabinet meetings earlier, we have increased the registration fees, we've increased fees in different areas, which will culminate to increasing our revenue, and a target of 68 crores was given to Transport Department for this financial year. The Transport Department has told me that they will cross the 68 crores after the pressure being given to them, and they might be able to touch 90 to even 100 crores this year itself. The Excise Department has come up with new measures to increase revenue. So earlier we used to have one license fee for any kind of person who wants to open a bar. So whether you're selling hard drinks or you're selling just beer or wine, you simply have to pay 3 lakh rupees for all the kind of alcohol that is there. So we sat down with the tourism department and realized that a lot of tourists come in and they just want a glass of wine. Somebody just wants a beer on a hot day. So we decided to come up with a new license for small shops and small restaurants that will sell alcohol or sell drinks with alcohol less than 12%, which is wine, alcopops and beer. So no hard drinks will be sold, but you get the license, or else they would be taking it, as he mentioned, in black. So rather than selling it and buying in black, we have made it transparent now. Come up with this license which will cost only 30,000 rupees, and with that 30,000 rupees in your shop you are allowed to sell wine, alcopops, which is breezers, and beer. So these kind of innovative things are being done, sir. So therefore revenue generation is the second part. So the third part is to ensure that the money that we get is utilized in a proper manner. Most important is that, sir. So therefore, sir, I have in fact spoken to the Chief Secretary, and so we are going to come out with a white paper. We have decided to come out with a white paper on departments for the last 5 years, how they have functioned, what is going on now, and how to improve it in the future. So all departments, social welfare, agriculture, mining, you name it, transport, I want a white paper to be made in all the departments so that we can see that in the past 2, 3 years, 5 years, where we went wrong maybe, or where we could have improved, how the schemes were implemented, you know. So a clear white paper will give us a clear direction on how things are. This cannot be done in one night. It takes time, but we will start off with few departments. And I think that will give us a very good picture and ensure that the money that we receive is implemented in the right manner. So therefore, sir, these are the few things that we are working on. As I said, cutting costs is important, but expenditure which is mandatory cannot be cut, sir. You cannot cut lifelines. You need infrastructure. You need basic, movement. Number 2, sir, is increase of revenue, which we're working on. And number 3, as I said, ensuring that the money that comes in is utilized in the best possible manner so we get maximum output. So therefore, sir, this is a very long topic. I can go on, but I think we have other issues and topics to be discussed. So with these few words, sir, I have tried to clarify as much as I could. And with this clarification, sir, I resume my seat. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Clarification? Yes, sir. Honorable Speaker, sir, I am slightly shocked to see the Chief Minister becoming so emotional about the whole thing that I had spoken. Actually, in his emotions got over him and he went on and on, missing the whole focus of my calling attention. My calling attention was merely, despite financial crunch, no steps to curtail spending. That's all I said. And CM gave the whole achievements of the works that the government is planning and doing and all that. Nevertheless, sir, I have few issues. The issue is that I never said that do not buy vehicles. Buy vehicles for officers, but not for ministers. The Honorable Chief Minister himself an amount has been sanctioned to buy a vehicle for the Chief Minister. But that vehicle is yet to be bought. We have cleared here by supplementary demand last time. So these kind of things are indications to the government to kindly curtail. I have not said that the government has spent, but the Honorable Chief Minister has been sanctioned with a very costly vehicle. Perhaps in his good wisdom, he has not bought the vehicle. So I just brought to the notice. Secondly, sir, I'd like to clarify that the chairman posts, if were more higher or more in number during our days, it is because we had money. Yes, we had sufficient money during the Congress government rule. But sir, now this present government also need to look into their pockets. They need to look into their pockets, how much money do they have. So with the Honorable Chief Minister did not reply to the point. I never said don't hold festivals. Please carry on with the festivals, I said. But remember, to earn revenue for the state,
they missed on the liquor bar licenses. Like Honorable Chief Minister said, that I cannot go and stand there with a placard saying, come and take. No, sir. You have enforcement staff to do the needful. I don't expect the Chief Minister to go and with a placard and say, come and take bar license from me. You have enforcement officers who will do the needful. If the excise enforcement staff could not do that, then they have failed in their duty. NH7 is a good musical extravaganza, which I said we should continue, we should promote. But I said we must remember to collect revenue from every festival that is being approved by the government. Also, on the autumn festival, I said yes, we should have this kind. But how many foreign tourist footfalls? The Honorable Chief Minister was talking about only the achievements, but what steps the government would take to curtail expenditures, particularly to help our corporations. Our corporations are sinking day by day. So MECL is running debt after debt. MIDC, MTDC, whatever, all corporations. But sir, the Honorable Chief Minister has not replied to me how to salvage these corporations that are all sinking. Then sir, about the Act East policy. Honorable Chief Minister talked about Chittagong. Chittagong is not in Meghalaya. What are we concerned of? Let us be slightly selfish. What is the benefit of the Act East policy to Meghalaya? What is going to happen? Yes, we understand that crores of rupees that the Honorable Chief Minister has gone and met the union ministers. Have we seen one single paisa coming for the Act East policy? Any action has happened here? So that's why, sir, I thought we should talk about facts. As of now, let us not talk about dream projects. The dream projects, if it comes, it comes. It doesn't come, doesn't matter. But talk facts. As of now, how do you handle the financial crunch that you are facing? That is all that I have to say, sir.
CM, so it's same thing being repeated again. And sir, I think call attention motion is maybe not the appropriate way.
So you are taking note of?
Yes, I have taken note, but again, sir, I think all the points, in fact, he has mentioned, I have already made my point very clear. And I think the honorable member fails to see that it was he who raised all those points, and when I replied to it and he couldn't answer back, so he goes on to other points again saying that, why don't we come back to the main thing? He should have stuck to the main thing in the beginning only, sir. But I have nonetheless, I've taken note, sir, of all these things that he has mentioned. And as I said, I'm a very, very open person, and I take all the criticism in a positive manner. And definitely, if there's something positive in his points, definitely we will look into it.
Nakaliang MLA ka Umroi constituency, uba George Lingdo ulabo jingkali ka sarkar, halor ka jingmi kubor, ba persya kinaw salan mar, ya ka weight bridge policy jong ka sarkar MDA.
So as per the news report, it seems that the President of the Association of Meghalaya Traders and Transporters have petitioned the Chief Minister that there is a mushrooming of weighbridges across the state, and that the present government has come up with a new Meghalaya state policy for weighbridges. So people have always raised concerns about the number of weighbridges in the state. If you remember, so pre-2010, how the weighbridges have stalled traffic, how weighbridges have become a pain for the citizens of the state, the transporters, for the consumers, for the distributors, and also for all the retailers. This policy that was there earlier led to the state government to dismantle all the unnecessary weighbridges across the state and conform to the Supreme Court ruling back then. Now, sir, if we have to rewind and go back to that pre-2010 days, where again weighbridges are going to mushroom again in the state and bring about harassment, extortion, and also we have witnessed violence in some of the check gates also, sir, when the processing time took a lot of the transporters' time, where for days they were stuck there. So, what is the use? So, if a truck has to pass through, last time, if you remember, sir, you may recall the number of weighbridges that have been brought to the notice of the House, 103 by the 103 numbers are there, weighbridges according to the legal metrology department, and 16 weighbridges are there according to the transport department, sir. So all these weighbridges will only bring in much more pain and suffering to the transporters as well as to the citizens. The cost of the products also will go up. Eatables also will be much more costlier. We are reeling under a very, very difficult time, sir, when the petrol crisis, the petrol prices, the diesel prices, the LPG prices have shot up. Now, if we bring in so many weighbridges, sir, the cost will have to be borne by the consumers only, by the citizens only. So I implore, sir, upon the state government to review if there is such a policy to bring in more number of weighbridges in the state, sir. It will only bring difficult time to the people, add on to the cost of living across the state. At the same time, sir, be a harassment to the transporters who work day and night to bring products and eatables to the state, sir. So with these few concerns, sir, I will not take much time of the House, sir, and I will request the Honourable Minister to kindly clarify on this new policy that has been adopted, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Minister, can you prefer to reply or to lead a statement in the House?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think if the Honourable Member agree, so I can lead a statement on the table of the House, and even though all the point raised by him is already incorporated with the policy itself, I can furnish the policy copy to his office also. And for the present reply, I can lead a statement, so if he's agree. If it's not so, I can...
No, it will be the same. Whether I reply or he lead, the statement will be the same.
So I think we are already, our ears are too tired hearing lengthy replies. So I think if only a short reply, sir, but then if it cannot be brief, then sir, the statement can be lead.
Mr. Speaker, sir, let me lay it because all the point raised by him is with my reply only.
So let the Minister lead the statement in the House.
Sir.
So we go to item number 18. Again, Judge B. Lingdo, MLA, to call the attention of the Minister in charge Health and Family Welfare under Rule 54 sub Rule 1 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business to the news item published in the National Times dated 17/11/2018 under the caption Corruption Alleged in Health Department. See Judge B. Lingdo, MLA, please.
Thank you, sir, for again allowing me to raise this call attention motion on this very important issue, where corruption has been alleged in the health department, where a section of suppliers, the Northeast Drug Suppliers Association, and yesterday also, sir, the Meghalaya Suppliers Association also have come up with their concerns regarding the system of functioning in the health department for the tender process that has been adopted for the intravenous fluid, sir. So, I think it is time, sir, with all the lengthy discourse that has already been, we have already heard from the Chief Minister, trying to bring in better systems, trying to bring in a transparent government. So, we want to know why these things are happening, sir. Why, at this age and time, why we are not adopting e-tenders? That will take away the burden from the department. Officers will not be alleged of corruption. E-tender is a system that will be transparent, accountable. At the same time, sir, the bidders also can come in a much more healthy environment, sir. So, we also want to know who are these 3 distributors that have been selected by the department. What is the cost of the intravenous fluid, sir? Pre-tender and post-tender, sir. If there has been a huge escalation in the cost, we want to know the reason as to why the department has gone for a highest cost. And what is the actual reason of not getting intravenous fluids that are much more cheaper and better, maybe, sir, from the market. So manipulation of the terms and conditions have also been alleged, where the annual turnover of rupees 50 crore has to be there in the last 3 financial years for these firms that are bidding for the IV fluids, sir. So what is the thumb rule? We want to know the thumb rule. Because if suddenly the department has escalated the annual turnover, what was the previous terms and conditions? Because, sir, this is only trying to constrain the system, not allowing players to come in. Perhaps there are better players with better services also, sir. So, this way, sir, it will only bring a burden to to the department, and as our member earlier also suggested regarding taking measures to constrain the expenditures. And perhaps this money that was supposed to be meant for better medicines, more medicines, better services of the health department now has gone to buy expensive medicines which earlier were available at a much more better cost. So these concerns, I again would not like to take much time of the House and will implore upon the Health Minister to kindly give clarity on this issue, sir.
Thank you. Same thing to the Minister of Health. We prefer to reply or to lay statement.
Sir, I will prefer to reply, sir, because it is very short reply, and also because it is only the allegations, sir.
You reply.
Honorable Speaker, sir, I am thankful to the Honorable Member, Sri George B. Lingdo, MLA, for the call attentions motions under the Rules 54 sub Rule 1 of the Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Business on the news clipping which appeared in the newspaper, the Shillong Times, dated 17 November 2018, under the captions, corruption alleged in the health department, sir. It is corruption alleged, sir. The Directorate of Health Services, MI, has floated a tender for supplying IV fluids by advertisement number HSM stroke PV stroke MED stroke CMS and the third 03/2017 17 and 18 and /9217 dated 13 July 2018 from the original manufacturer that they wish to offer having valid manufacturing license its own name or direct importers of the drug that they may wish to offer holding valid import license, distributor /supplier /agents /loan licenses are not eligible to participate in the tenders. The manufacturer who are having an average annual of turnover of not less than 50 crores per annum during the last 3 consecutive years are eligible to participate in the tender. So the items are as given below, the name and the medicine and composition. So we have the total items of the medicines and compositions, 34, sir. The 33 numbers of the tenders were sold and only 20 numbers of the tender were submitted. Received, the details are given below. If you want me to go through with all these tenders, sir, I can go through, but otherwise I can submit a latest statement in the table of the House, sir.
No, you do like this.
Continue.
No, do like this. You clarify the points you feel that you have to reply now, but the rest the points you may table.
Okay, sir. Yeah. Then the rest of this tenders will be laid table of the House. So on the scrutiny of the technical bids submitted by the above 20 numbers tenderers, the committee observed that all the above 20 numbers tenders were qualified in the technical bid. The committee finally accepted the tenders and the rates were incorporated into the comparative rate statement. The Central Purchase Board, which has met on the 28th September 2018, approved the lowest rate of each item quoted, and the government approved the same by letter number of health 50/2015/219 dated 11 October 2018. So the Directorate of Health Services, MI, has floated the tender for supply of drugs and chemical by advertisement number HSM/PB/MED/CMS/01/2017-18/21496 dated 5th November 2018 from the original manufacturer that they will wish to offer having valid manufacturing license in its own name or direct importers of drugs that they wish to offer holding valid import license, distributor, supplier, agents, loan licenses are not eligible to participate in this tender. The manufacturer who are having an average annual of turnover not less than 50 crores per annum during the last 3 consecutive years are eligible to participate in the tender. The number of items is 1,380 The last date of sale of submission of the tender is 21st October 2018 and will be open on 7 January 2018 and 11 a.m. The number of tenders sold till 26 November 2018 is 105 numbers. The purpose of the selections of procedure was to attract the participation of reputed and capable manufacturer with proven track record. The pre-qualification criteria were exhaustive yet specific, and there is a fair and adequate competition. It was ensured that the pre-qualification criteria are already clearly stipulated the ambiguous terms and the bits of documents. From the aforesaid statements, it is made clear that suppliers have no role in the tender floated by the Director of Health Services. Only the manufacturer are eligible to participate. Distributor and supplier are not eligible to participate. The government have no role to appoint any authorized distributor supplier. It is solely rests upon the manufacturer. Thus, the allegation of nexus between the distributor, supplier and officer of the department does not arise, sir. So this is the few points of my submission, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, the concern was why not adopt for an e-tendering system? So the entire process that was laid by the Honorable Minister depicts that the department is still adopting the old age processes of putting in papers, putting in the manual system, committees. But then, sir, to bring in, so I have not alleged corruption, that's what, sir, I have raised in the point also, sir. If corruption is being alleged, it is the duty of the government also, sir, to ensure, to bring in a transparent system to protect everybody, all the concerns of everyone is taken into consideration. At the same time also, we will have a system that will improve all the old things that have been there for quite a long time, sir. So I again request, sir, the Health Minister, that, or maybe the Chief Minister, sir, why not go for e-tendering processes, not only for the Health Department, sir, for all other departments in the state. This will help to bring a transparent system, and all these allegations, perhaps some of them are right, some of them are wrong, but then a proper system will protect the interests of everybody, sir. So with these few concerns, sir, I again will request the Minister to kindly look upon the matter, sir. Sir, we have already discussed in the Health Department to go also e-tendering system, sir. We will bring also interest, but depend also on the quantum of the amount, sir. But not all the tenders can be called in the e-tendering system. It depends on the amounts and the quantum of the amount, sir.
Nakalang ba HM Sangpliang ula theteng yak sarkar halor ka jinglong jingman ka songsok songsan ha ka jela khamtam halor ka jingja dangsen hari luom jantia na ka jingsha thombor ka kong Agnes Kharsieng bat ka Amita Sangma ha ka snong tuber so shre sakawai pat kamat ka ba uba HM Sangpliang ulakren kadai pat halor ki project ba peroper ki balamang pisa da kitnat ba peroper jong sarkar pedeng lengba ka North Eastern Council bansangi ka Shillong Engineering College ka College of Science and Commerce ka College of Architecture and Urban Planning bat ka Medical College. Nakalang uba piti sokme ulakren ru halor ka jingbu no igi kerdap talasi mender bat ki barjela hakaleng ka jela haki surak ba banyerong yemi bat ki weipat ki jela.
Honorable Speaker, sir, today I rise with a very heavy heart, seeing the condition of the law and order situation that is prevailing in the state, and in particular in the Jaintia Hills district. So we are all aware that on the 8th of November, two women activists, Srimati Agnes Kharsieng and Srimati Amita Sangma, were brutally attacked by some people in a group of 20 to 30 in a village called Shoshre in the East Jaintia Hills district. So we are aware that Srimati Agnes Kharsieng has been championing and raising issues in connection to the illegal mining and illegal transportation of coal that is rampantly being carried out in the Jhente Hills district. And on this particular day, it was reported that she, along with her friend Amita Sangma, had gone to East Jhente Hills to capture some of these illegal activities under her camera so as to highlight and expose the illegal activities that are happening rampantly in broad daylight. Sir, yesterday, the Women Empowerment Committee of the Assembly, under the chairperson of Srimati Ampareen Lingdo, where I am also a member of that committee, we had summoned the Deputy Commissioner and the SP of East Jhente Hills District to inquire into the circumstances leading to the attack on these two women activists, and thereby the follow-up actions and the arrests made so far. It was shocking, sir, to learn from the Deputy Commissioner and the SP on the manner that the whole case is being handled. Sir, we were told that around 12 o'clock, Agnes Kharshing and Amita Sangma had gone to the Latrambai police outpost, and they were served with tea by some constable in the outpost. The in charge was not there at that point of time. And the tea duration was about 20 minutes. We asked as a committee that in these 20 minutes, what discussion followed while having tea? The IO of the case could not give the answer. He said, I do not know what they discussed. There itself, sir, we could understand that the whole process has started to go wrong. If the IO did not inquire why these two women had come to the OP and for what reason did they come, and while having tea, what were they discussing? And immediately after they left the OP, in just 20 minutes time, they were attacked by a group of 30 people who suddenly appeared from nowhere. Now there are a lot of missing links, sir. A lot of missing links. We could not get those links from these officers yesterday because they kept saying, we did not find out. We could not find out. Now, sir, the constable, who is the main witness, one constable Sangma, immediately he went on leave, and he's still on leave now. Now his deposition is yet to be taken by the IO. So these are all the missing links that we found. Then, sir, it was sad to hear that the whole process of, medications and all that was taken place. But, sir, the findings of the committee was even more shocking because they have arrested only 6 people so far. 2 people were also brought in. After interrogation, they were let loose. 6 people were arrested, and out of these 6, they are not the prime accused. They are not the prime accused, sir. They have just come there to be part of that mob. These 6 people, sir, today is the 20th day after the attack has happened. 20 days have gone, sir. No prime accused has been arrested till date. Srimati Amita Sangma had written one note to the DGP asking him to take necessary action, and he mentioned a particular name of the prime accused. Till date, that accused is at large. We asked the SP yesterday whether any action has been taken. SP says, sir, we could not trace him. Now there was no lookout notice given for this prime accused. No necessary action has been taken to follow up, to go and look for this man who could have given many more evidences, many more leads to the case. Sir, the manner that this whole case is being handled is very shoddy and in a very careless attitude, sir. Sir, now we know that our state respects women. Now it's a matrilineal state, sir. Now what kind of message would we be showing or would be sending to the people of the state if two women activists have been brutally, murderously attacked, and till date the government could not even arrest the main culprits? Forget about the investigation, sir. The investigation has been entrusted to the Deputy Superintendent of Police of the East Jante Hills, and it is still going. Sir, the investigation is seriously very slow, and before the people of the state, they lose the confidence, they lose the trust in the functioning of the government. We feel that the government should really come up seriously and take actions, whatever need be, to go after the culprits. We understand that the government has declared or decided to conduct an independent probe. We appreciate it. But why after 20 days? Why after 20 days? Sir, the independent probe will go on its own way, but we feel that the investigation is more important.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think we are all concerned. We share the concern of the people of the state. And that was the reason why, though it is only a one-day session, we felt it very important that the issues or matter of urgent public importance need to be discussed when we sit in the session. People of the state expect us to dwell and deliberate on these issues and know from the government about the stand that we take to reassure the people of the state and to ensure that there is no reason for people to have lack of confidence on us, on all the elected representatives. Therefore, it is only befitting that this important discussion has been facilitated through this provision of the rules of procedure and conduct of business in this August House. And we thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, profusely for admitting this particular agenda to be discussed.
Mr. Speaker, sir, it is alarming that the law and order situation in the state of Meghalaya is worsening day by day. I would not elaborate much, and those points raised by other members preceding to me, I will try not to repeat the same. Sir, I am shocked with the incidents of the murderous attempt and attack on the prominent members of civil society, Agnes Karsing and Amita Sangma, who are trying to find out the facts about the illegal mining and raise their voices. So from these incidents, we could understand that those who are raising voice are being attacked. If you recollect, one RT activist who was also the president of JYF, Hoipin Hun Majau, was murdered on the 19th of March this year. And the culprit could not be traced out and no arrest has been made so far on that. And on the 8th of this month, another incident, this is the attack on the social activist. This is not only attack, sir, Mr. Chairman, sir, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sir, but actually the culprits, they might have conspired to murder this social activist, and after severely attack, Ms. Agnes Karsing was abandoned and thrown in the forest, thinking that she had already died. But with God's grace, she is still surviving. And from these incidents, we could understand that whoever raising voice against the activities of the criminals, they are being attacked, and no justice is being given to the victims. Right from the month of March, we could see when the RT activist, when he was also trying to raise some issues, was murdered. When illegal mining in different parts of the state was alleged to be carried out, and such allegations were brought before the government, rather the Honorable Chief Minister, he had given clean chit that there is no illegal mining in the state of Meghalaya. Rather, the Honorable Chief Minister should have seriously thought and tried to find out the veracity of this kind of allegations, rather than giving clean chit. Which, because of this attitude and the negligence, the perpetrators could do so many things, culminating in the murderous attack of this activist. The Honorable Chief Minister should have thought that there cannot be smoke without fire.
So as the chairperson of the Committee on the Empowerment of Women, I have completed one portion of my responsibility, and I have put in all efforts to place a preliminary report of a recent inquiry conducted by our committee. I place before the wisdom of the Speaker and you, sir, to follow up necessary action so that the efforts put in by our committee stand an opportunity to bring up some sense from this heinous occurrence of a crime against a woman in the state. Honorable Deputy Speaker, sir, if action is not taken, I am afraid your child, my child, somebody's wife, somebody's sister, somebody's near and dear one may succumb to the same magnitude of attack. And we need to put an end to this inhuman attack on individuals, whether men or women, in the peaceful state of Meghalaya. Honorable Deputy Speaker, sir, just a few observations that I would also like to supplement to put voice into the deteriorating law and order around our city and our beautiful state. So of late, there has been reports, not always being reflected in the media, but talked about in social gatherings around the community. There is this growing organized theft that is going on in the city. Homes are being attacked, and these thieves in broad daylight enter homes and conduct very, very fearful organized thefts, putting not just those family members at risk, but also vitiating the sense of insecurity in the community. I request the Honorable Home Minister to have a review of the kind of thefts that are taking place in broad daylight across the city, not of just Shillong, but I'm told in several other cities across the state. So I also propose to the Honorable Home Minister that maybe an audit should be undertaken by the police department in areas where there is a great requirement of CCTVs, in areas where there is a complete failure of street electrification. These are very important components that can rebuild confidence of security in the minds of residents across the state, particularly in the capital city and the cities of the districts. I think we need to do that to ensure that there is this adequate lighting and placement of CCTVs, which is very important for the solving of crimes as and when they occur.
Sir, I believe that this short duration discussion was brought about particularly in relation to the assault of Srimati Agnes Karshing and Srimati Amita Sangma on the 8th of November 2018 at Tuber Shosri under Cleriat Police Station in East Jaintia Hills District, sir. So therefore, sir, I would like to go straight to this point and not take the time of this august house, and would like to clarify the present status of this particular case, sir. So on the 8th of November 2018 at around 1:40 p.m., the Superintendent of Police East Jaintia Hills District Cleriat received information from the Special Branch Meghalaya to the effect that Srimati Agnes Karshing, the President of CSWO, and her companion Srimati Amita Sangma were assaulted by certain individuals at Kongong area under Cleriat Police Station, East Jaintia Hills District. On receiving this information, the SP East Jaintia Hills Cleriat immediately sent a police team to the place of occurrence for rescuing the victims. The police team rushed to Kongong area and conducted a search, but they could not locate the victims. The police team comprising Sub-Inspector A. Yao Thniao, in charge Ladrimbai Police Outpost, and Woman Police Sub-Inspector B. Shadab then proceeded to Tuber Soshri, and on reaching this village, they found one injured lady, later identified as Srimati Amita Sangma, who appeared on the national highway and was seeking help. Srimati Amita Sangma informed the police that she, along with Srimati Agnes Karshim, were attacked by a group of 20 to 30 people. She led the police team to the spot where Srimati Agnes Karshim was found lying unconscious and left abandoned in a nearby bush about 30 meters from the National Highway 6. Immediately, both the victims were taken by the police team to Yalong Civil Hospital, Jawai, for receiving medical treatment. Later, both victims were referred to Nigrams, Shillong, sir. So I'd like to just go into the background of the case also, sir. It was reported, sir, that both the victims, namely Srimati Amita Sangma and Srimati Agnes Karshim, were proceeding towards Ladrambai, East Jaintia Hills district in a vehicle bearing registration number ML05R3733, driven by Sri E. Kurba. According to the driver, Sri E. Kurba, both the ladies had started from Shillong at around 10:30 a.m. on the 8th, and on reaching East Jaintia Hills, they first visited Ladrambai for a brief period of time. He added that while coming back to Shillong and on reaching Kongong area, Srimati Agnes Karshing and Srimati Amita Sangma got down from the vehicle and took pictures of the coal depots. After that, they proceeded towards Tuber Shosri. There, they got down from the vehicle to take pictures of the coal depots around the Sosri area. Suddenly, one Maruti gypsy along with a white-colored Bolero appeared and blocked their path, and the unknown occupants of the two vehicles came out and allegedly dragged Srimati Agnes Karshing and Srimati Amita Sangma out of the vehicle. The driver was threatened with dire consequences by the miscreants, and he was forced to leave the spot immediately. Fearing for his life, the driver, Sri E. Kurba, left the spot and proceeded directly towards Jawai Police Station to report the matter to the police and seek help. Clariat Police Station, case number 195 in brackets 11/2008 under section 307, 392 and 34 of the IPC was registered based on the sumoto FIR filed by the police Sri A. Yafnau on the 8th of November. As per the FIR, the victims were allegedly robbed of their personal belongings, which included their mobile phones and cameras, and there was an attempt to murder them. Considering the gravity of the crime and its sensitivity, the case is being investigated by a DSP, a Deputy Superintendent of Police level officer, and the District Superintendent of Police is supervising the case himself, and the Deputy Inspector General of Police Eastern Range is also monitoring the case closely, sir. So the present status of the investigation, sir, I would like to inform this August House that the investigation of the case is progressing well, and good progress has been achieved in the investigation so far. The course and status of the investigation is as follows, sir. On the night of the 8th of November 2018, the police team of East Jaintia Hills District launched an intensive search for the arrest of the persons involved in the case. On the 9th at around 1 a.m., Sri Elphon Dakar, 22 years of age, and of Minthlu village, East Jaintia Hills District, and Sri Meklisom Xiangxiai, 26 years of age, of Mukhep village, East Jaintia Hills District, were apprehended from Kongong area at the place where the victims took pictures of the coal trucks. Both the suspects were arrested and forwarded to Clariat Court. A prayer for police custody was submitted before the Honorable Court, and 5 days police custody was granted by the court. On expiry of police custody, the two accused persons were forwarded to judicial custody. So on the 10th of this month, November 2018, the investigating officer accompanied by WPSI S. Karsati proceeded to Nigrams, Shillong, for recording the statement of both the victims. However, on reaching Nigrams, it was learned that Srimati Agnes Karshing was still unconscious, due to which her statement could not be recorded. However, the statement of Srimati Amita Sangma was recorded by WPSI S. Karsati. On the 14th of November 2018, on receipt of information that Srimati Tourist Lona Xiangxiai was also strongly suspected to be involved in the case, her location was traced to Bernihart Riboy district. The investigating officer, Sri G. Marshalong, MPS, Deputy Superintendent of Police, Clariat, accompanied by S.I.H. Kongla, WPSI B. Shadab and WPSI S. Karsati were directed to proceed to the above mentioned place to apprehend Srimati Torres Lona Siangshai. On the 15th of November 2018, the police team returned from Riboy as they could not locate Srimati Torres. However, she was intercepted at Umolong, West Chantia Hills by in-charge Ladrambai outpost and was taken to Women Police Station at Jawai. The investigating officer along with the team thoroughly interrogated the subject, but no facts could be ascertained about her involvement in this instant case. Hence, she was released after she was medically examined at Civil Hospital, Yalong. On the 16th of November, sir, Sri Hamlin Rimbai, 39 years of Wapung School, was arrested from Clariat for his alleged involvement in the case. He was forwarded to the learned Clariat court and remanded to 3 days of police custody. On the 17th of November, the police team from Ladrambai outpost picked up Srimati Philista Dakar, 35 years of age, of Kongong village, and she was brought to Women's Cell, Clariat, for examination. The suspect was thoroughly examined, but no facts could be established regarding her involvement in this instant case. Hence, she was released after she was medically examined at Clariat Community Health Center. On the 18th of November, Sri Sharming Shadab, 52 years of age, of Wapung Shnong village, was apprehended from his village and brought to Clariat police station. He was arrested for his alleged involvement in this particular case. He was sent for medical examination at Clariat CHC, where he was admitted due to hypertensive emergency. Accordingly, an intimation report was submitted to the learned Clariat court for treating the medical treatment period at the hospital as judicial custody. On the 21st of November, Srimati Skemlang Dakar, 44 years of age, of Yongkalu, Nyanshnong village, was arrested at Clariat in connection with the case. She was forwarded to the learned Clariat court and remanded to 5 days of judicial custody. On the 23rd of November, sir, Sri Shomiwel B. Kindai of Shangpung village was apprehended from Lokpriya Gopinath Borloy International Airport, Guwahati. At around 10:30 a.m., he was brought to Clariat police station, where he was arrested and later forwarded to the learned Clariat court and was given 5 days of police custody. So the case is being expeditiously investigated with focused attention under a team of able officers, and all efforts are being made for arresting other persons involved in the case. Security measures, sir. The Honorable High Court of Meghalaya Wide Order dated 15th November 2018 issued directions to the Director General of Police Meghalaya to take appropriate measures for ensuring protection and security of both the injured persons and Negrims. The order has been complied with, and the following adequate security arrangements have been made, sir. At present, sir, namely, number 1, the security arrangements in and around the vicinity of the Negrims Hospital, Shillong, has been stepped up, especially the area where the victims are undergoing medical treatment. CCTV cameras have been installed at vital and strategic points of the hospital as a part of security measures. On 24 hours basis, police protection and security has been provided with strict access control. Number 2, sir, Sri D.K. Prasad, MPS, Deputy Superintendent of Police Headquarters, East Khasi Hills, Shillong, is personally supervising the security arrangement at Negrims. A duty roster has also been opened at the hospital, sir. Sir, this is just to give a background and a brief about the status of the case and how the investigation is proceeding, sir. There have been many points, however, which were raised by the honorable members, having referred to this incident, they have gone into what they are defining, sir, as lawlessness and the sense of insecurity in the state. Sir, I would like to assure the honorable member from Mawson Ram. He expressed shock at the manner in which the case was being handled. Sir, we must understand, sir, that investigation is a process wherein witnesses are examined, their statements are taken. These statements have to be corroborated with other evidences. Names do come up in the course of these kind of statements that come up, And then these other people whose names do prop up, these are called for questioning and interrogation. So this is a process wherein, lest there be a travesty of justice, time has to be taken to ascertain and verify all facts. If a name comes up, it would amount to travesty of justice if an innocent person is unnecessarily harassed. Therefore, sir, I can understand the concerns of the honorable member from Mawsynram, but I think it is a part of an investigation, a part of a process which requires from our end a little amount of patience also. We are very sure the police department is doing everything in its power to nab the culprits, to arrest the persons who are guilty of this heinous and inhuman crime, sir. And the government has condemned this, and we condemn this very, very strongly. However, sir, the investigation should not end up wherein things are done so hastily just for the sake of wrapping up everything that some innocent person finds himself in victimized or punished for no fault of his. Therefore, sir, we must give the police time to investigate properly, to investigate in a manner which will make sure that innocent person will not be victimized, sir. So I can understand the concerns raised by the honorable member. I would like to assure him that everything is being done by the police department to investigate this matter and to find an early closure to this case, sir. Sir, the honorable member also mentioned that only 6 arrests have been made so far, and they are not the prime accused, sir. And sir, I would like to mention here, sir, that based on the statement which was initially given by Srimati Amita Sangma, sir, the police quickly they went into action and arrests were made, as I have already read out, sir, on the 15th itself, sir. No, I'm sorry, not on 15th, on the 9th itself, sir, at 1 a.m. The incident took place on the 8th, sir, and on the 9th itself, Shri Elphon Dakhar, age 22, and Shri Meklisom Siangshai were arrested, sir. So therefore, sir, the arrests are being made, sir, based on evidence which will hold up in the court of law. So therefore, sir, the process is going on, and only 6 persons arrested is basically because, sir, these persons have been arrested because of very, very strong evidence of their involvement in this case, sir. And the case is being built up, sir, accordingly. So they are not the prime accused, sir. Well, sir, the prime accused is again, sir, a matter which is in the process of investigation, sir, and it is being investigated. So I don't think that we need to go into into who the prime accused is, or that is an ongoing investigation, sir. So I would not like to go into that, sir. He has mentioned that one person was named by Srimati Amita subsequent to the FIR, the statement that she had given in the hospital. So this was later on that she gave another letter stating that there is one prime accused, and she has mentioned the name. Sir, I would like to assure this august house, not just a member who raised this concern, that the law will take its own course, sir. And it does not matter what political affiliation or from which political party that person is, be it from the ruling or be it from the opposition, that does not matter, sir. If a person has taken law in his or her own hands, sir, the law will take its course and justice will be delivered, sir. That is something that I would like to give an assurance to the honorable member and also to this august house, sir. Sir, all persons suspected in this incident whose names have come up, there is the police is vigorously pursuing, apprehending these suspects, sir, and bringing them in for interrogation and questioning, sir. So this is something, sir, I would like to assure the honorable member and this august house that the police is doing everything in its power to apprehend and to bring in these people for questioning, sir. So the manner in which it is being handled has been called shoddy by the honorable member, sir. And I would like to just, tell him, sir, that there is nothing shoddy about the investigation, sir. There is a procedure to be followed and everything is being done by the book, sir. Procedurally, there has been no lapses, sir, and therefore, sir, I would like to assure him that there is nothing shoddy about this. Our police force are more than well equipped to handle this case, sir, and they are doing it in right earnest, sir. And there is nothing shoddy about this incident, this investigation, sir. Sir, he also mentioned about the security, which I have already clarified about. What are the security facilities given to both the victims, sir, Srimati Amita and Srimati Agnes Karshing, sir. Apart from that, he also mentioned about the medical bills which were to be borne by the government. Sir, the government has already declared that all the medical expenses will be borne by the government, which is related to Srimati Agnes and Srimati Amita, sir. In fact, we have already written to the Nigrams that whatever the director Nigrams has been asked to submit, sir, all medical bills to the state government relating to their treatment, sir, which is going on right now, sir. Yes, sir, the compensation which was paid was only to an amount of Rs 12,700 given by the Deputy Commissioner. But, sir, the expenses related to the medical bills will be borne by the state government. That is a commitment already made by the state government, and Director Nigrams has been asked to submit all medical bills to the state government. I think that, sir, why this has been done is it should not be in piecemeal that every day there is a settlement, but the settlement will be done at one point of time, sir. And when this settlement is done at one point of time, it will be borne by the state government. That is an assurance that has already been given by the government, sir. The compensation which was paid was at the level of the Deputy Commissioner, and yes, it was given from the relief and disaster management, sir. Sir, the important point is that, sir, the Deputy Commissioner has gone ahead and given that compensation package, sir. And he, being an officer himself, he must understand and appreciate the fact that the Deputy Commissioner was very prompt in giving that compensation, whatever little it may be. But there are ways of how to go about things, but yet the Deputy Commissioner went out of his way to give this compensation from the disaster relief fund, sir. So I don't think it is important to look at where it came from, but it is more important that that gesture was made by the Deputy Commissioner to provide for this, even though it's a small amount, sir, provide for this compensation from his level to the victims, sir.